Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Great Lakes Truck Series here tonight at Twin Ring Motegi. Joined alongside me tonight is Jeff Johnson, and we've got quite the show for you going on tonight as we're taking on a facility that's not often raced in these NASCAR-style vehicles. Last time this was done was in the 1990s when the Cup Series had an expedition here. Jeff, what do you expect the action to be like tonight? Well, as we're dealing with a little bit of technical issues on the other side of the booth here, we're going to be talking a little bit about what these are dealing with tonight because it unique style of racetrack. We haven't gotten anything like this before, and from my own laps I've done around here, it kind of feels like a Darlington style track with a wider turn 1 and 2 and tighter turns 3 and 4.
Yeah, Alex, it's a unique racetrack out here in Twin Ring Motegi. A very different, very similar, but also a very different circuit to what we're used to in the Great Lakes Truck Series. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys handle it.
Yeah, for how they handle it indeed, because I personally struggled around this place. It seems like a very difficult setup these guys are dealing with tonight. It's very tight on the entry to these corners, but just as loose coming off the corners. And the corners are very, very long around here, so there's going to be likely a lot of tire saving going on. And it's either this field is going to spread out a ton, or we're going to get some crazy battling going back and forth while guys try to figure out how to drive this place.
Yeah, that's right, Alex. And something I am noticing is we have pretty close to a full field, which I don't think anybody was expecting here from Motegi. So track position is going to be key, and it'll be something to look at as the race progresses.
Well, as these drivers get rolling away, now would be a fantastic time to look at our starting lineup for tonight. And the pole position occupied by last week's winner, Nathan Jump, taking the controller to lead the field to green here at Twin Ring Motegi, with Nathan Nicholson along his outside in the second position. Just behind them as well, you got the 12 of Zachary Henry and Jake Miller, last season's champion. And as we keep going back through the field here, you got Heller and RJ Williams behind them. More competitive drivers, Ashton Lawson and Shane Neiswanger in 7th and 8th. There's a lot of competitive names here at the front of the field tonight. Doesn't look like as many new guys are really standing out so far. And as the field rolls through here, Nathan Nixon, Brandon Barkuski, 9th and 10th. Josh Cottle and William Barber Gelada, 11th, 12th, with Michael Senzi and Elliot Henderson lining side by side in 13th and 14th. Just behind them, Matthew Durr and Lewis Woodall in 15th and 16th. Eric Keff with a little bit of a poor qualifying performance down there in the 17th spot, with Hunter Brittle to his outside. Matt Daniels and Brett Kingcott behind them in 19th and 20th, with Tyler McClellan and Austin Moore following behind in the 21st and 22nd position. As we keep going further and further back in this field, we see drivers that are a little bit less consistent on week to week. It seems to be, as these guys are having to adapt to this new racetrack, that there's the real experience and speed moving their way to the front, as we see Anderson Bowen and Kyle Hall 25th and 26th, alongside with Aaron McEachern and Shane Terrian all the way down there in 27th and 28th, with Hunter Madalena, Steven Sims, and pretty much anybody back from that point not taking a qualifying time tonight. So some of these drivers, he's talking about track position, some of them decided not to take a time, or they ran a poor time in qualifying. How is that going to affect them?
I don't know that qualifying matters too much here in the Great Lakes Truck Series. It might matter a lot more at this track than it has all season long, with the tire wear and kind of with the length of this race. This race is just a little bit longer than what we're used to at 120 laps, just shy of 200 miles as the pace car enters turn 3.
Yeah, as it looks like the lights are out on the pace car, we're likely going to be going around, and we're going to be getting the green flag going as the pace car takes the hard left-hand turn. Nathan Jump will lead the field to green with a fantastic jump on that inside lane. He's going to be clear of the field by over 2 car lengths over Nathan Nicholson, with Zachary Henry on the inside lane looking to battle down here. The inside lane is pretty strong around here, but Nathan Nicholson's going to hold it around the top with these cold, very sketchy tires. Gonna be having to watch out for any possible wrecks here. Is almost look to be 3 wide there with Barkowski in the back. I see all these guys going crazy back here. These tires are cold. It's hard to get to the throttle already.
Yeah, 3 wide on that restart. Ashton Lawson got pinned on the bottom. I didn't catch who was on top, but a big moment for Lawson coming off too, where he slipped and managed to catch it. So that could have been a big incident early on for some of these guys up front.
Luckily, they all make it through here. This is a very, very big racetrack, so if something were to happen, it's going to be from guys kind of pinching each other a little bit too hard and get a little bit too tight of racing. There's plenty of space to go move around this racetrack. Problem is, the biggest spot you're going to want to be is right there on the bottom lane, as I'm seeing a little bit of a battle there around, I believe that's the 5th position. Never mind, as Jake Miller is going to slot in just ahead of Christopher Heller, and there's a good battle just behind them with Ashton Lawson and Shane Neiswanger side by side, with Brandon Barkowski looking to slide his way in there. As we're seeing the caution come out, crash in the back. I believe gonna have to look and see who that is in the back, but uh-oh, cars up against the wall. Matthew Daniels, Matt McDermott are stuck against the outside wall. Looks to be some trouble down into that tight turn of turn 3. That the key person we're going to have to be looking at in this incident is going to be Matt Daniels, I believe, as I think he may have been the driver that ended up initially getting into this incident. So coming down into turn 3, we're going to see him up on the outside of Austin Moore to his inside, and he just gets loose down into 3,
Wow.
gets tagged in the back bumper by Gavin Fitzgerald, and oh no! Absolute disaster for the victim of McDermott just getting involved in that incident. And that is pretty much going to end both their nights right there with some massive damage on lap 2 of this race. You're going to see kind of an on board here as he's up the track, and oh, through the smoke comes that spinning car of Matthew Daniels, and just not enough room for him to get out of the way in time. That is going to end his night right there and then, but already trouble early in this race. Most likely just some inexperience at this racetrack for these guys. The most practice they had was this 1-hour practice session beforehand for most of these drivers, and we're already seeing incidents early on in this event.
Yeah, we were hearing from drivers before the race, Alex, that we believe it's a kind of a combination of the setup and the weather, but throughout the week, this setup and this track have gotten progressively looser, presumably because it's actually gotten a little bit hotter as the sessions have advanced. So that's something these guys are going to have to take care of tonight. You saw Matt Daniels right there just kind of lose it turning into the corner. That's not something we've seen too much this season, as a driver really losing it on corner entry. We usually see it in the middle of the corner or corner exit. So that'll definitely be something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing I noticed with this racetrack is these corners are just so phenomenally wide, is that it's very easy to either overshoot the corner and get really, really tight, or take it a little bit too easily and try and make it up through the center, and you just get really, really loose. These corners are so wide to go from the straightaway down into the bottom lane, which is the fast lane, and you're kind of blind going down there. You don't have a very definitive line to get down into the corner like you do at most other racetracks.
Yeah, and in a way, yes, I'm sitting here kind of thinking about what we could compare this track to stateside, and I think I've settled on here at Twin Ring Motegi. It's essentially just a scaled up version of Gateway. The way you have to get into these corners, the way the banking falls down into the corner instead of picks up, it just unsettles the truck, and it's something these guys might not be all that used to outside of a track like Gateway or Dover.
Yeah, and I that's actually a very, very good comparison, because it is very much like a very highly scaled up version of Gateway, but that larger size of facility really changes how you drive this racetrack, because you go from just doing a very hard straight braking zone to a tight corner to now having this extremely wide corner that you're going into at high speed with so little banking. It's very awkward to negotiate for these drivers, because you don't want to lose too much time through the center of the corner because they are just so long.
Yeah, it'll definitely be something we'll have to deal with for the rest of the night. But while I'm looking at it, a big shout out. I didn't catch it in the pre-race, but Nathan Jump started on pole. He is technically a rookie to the Great Lakes Truck Series this season, if I'm not mistaken. If I am, please correct me. But Nathan Jump kind of having a phenomenal start to the season here. Obviously, we're still early in this race, but he is still out front.
Yeah, and to some of you who may have heard the controller comment at the beginning of the event, last week he won the race at what was the chaotic, you could almost describe it, demolition derby of Bristol Motor Speedway, as only a few trucks survived on the lead lap, but Nathan Jump was the one who capitalized. He talked to us in the booth last week and said that he was playing on a controller. He was taking the thing out on his lawn chair with his computer out and sitting with a controller playing, and he seems to have good speed on it with the pole position this week, and he very strongly led the first couple laps here.
It's gotta be a heightened level of car control to be able to do all this on a joystick, Alex. So mad props to Nathan Jump. Already took advantage of all the incidents we saw last week, but then here tonight, early on, he is proving that he should be up here.
Well, up here he is indeed. Let's see if he could get as good of a restart as he did the previous time. As the lights are out on the pace car, it's going to take the left-hand turn. We're going to be going green flag here as rolls up to the rear bumper, and Nathan Jump is going to get, once again, a good jump on the restart, but this time Zachary Henry not able to contend with Nicholson up on the inside. Nicholson slots in a second pretty easily. Battle's going to be for the third position between RJ Williams and Zachary Henry. Can RJ hold it around the outside? The tires are a lot hotter now than they were on the previous restart, and it looks like Zachary Henry is going to get the advantage coming off the corner, but RJ Williams is going to have that line on the outside with the draft, but it's not going to be enough to carry it down into turn 3. And now the battle for the lead starting to heat up at the same time as this, as Nathan Nicholson's getting a lot closer here, as these two are still going at it for the third spot. Racing going on all over the place as Nicholson looks to take it to the inside of Nathan Jump for the lead down into turns 1 and 2. This could be the key position change right here and now as the guys in third and fourth are battling still.
Yeah, battling for third, but Nathan Nicholson makes it look easy. Oh, almost makes it look easy getting past Nathan Jump on the inside.
Very, very strong move there for Nathan Nicholson. Gonna have to watch out for the tires a little bit, pushing that hard early on, but these two going on for third and fourth, Zachary Henry, RJ Williams, they just will not give up. I would have thought that Zachary Henry would have had the position. Looks like RJ Williams is finally going to give up the spot and take the inside lane, as Christopher Heller is going to look to try and capitalize around the outside, but that's going to allow Jake Miller to slot up the bottom. Jake Miller was in a bit of a battle earlier on there as well, but he's going to get loose off the corner. That's going to allow Heller to get the run and clear him. And now the battle is just behind them between Ashton Lawson and Shane Neiswanger, as now the whole top 5 have started to settle it out here.
Yeah, the top 5 settling out, Alex. A question for you as more of a driver than I am is what line do you think is going to be the preferred line as this run goes on? We see a truck have a little bit of an issue off of 4 there. Kyle Hall looks like he almost looped it but managed to straighten it out. But back to what I was saying, Alex, as this run goes on, as these tires fall off, what do you think the preferred line is going to be for these drivers? Where do they want to be as they're setting up to pass?
Well, I mean, we've already seen the bottom lane prevail for most of these drivers so far tonight. Pretty much any time there was a side-by-side battle, no matter how long it took, eventually that inside line would end up working out. But I could see some use coming out of that outside lane, especially on the restarts with everybody stacked up. There could be some clean air to find out there in the mid-pack where everybody's very much on top of each other. But once we get to this point of the run, everybody started to single file out. I don't think there should be any reason for you to be on the outside lane, as you are eventually just going to lose positions, if not get trained.
Brendan Barkuski and Josh Cottle battling for the 11th
Shane
position.
Neiswanger spun around turns 3 and 4. Looks to have gotten hooked with how sharply he got spun around there in the center of the corner. Could be some trouble here out on the racetrack. Now, he was running in between Ashton Lawson and Elliott Henderson, so the question is going to be if there was any contact between any of those drivers onto Shane Neiswanger as we head down into turns 3 and 4. Looks to be a gap, and all
Oh,
of a
wow.
sudden, that truck snaps around from underneath them. I simply cannot explain what happened there to that vehicle, but all of a sudden, all the rear grip in that truck disappeared, and he's looped it like it was nothing. Now, we are going to have to look out for one thing tonight. We have not talked about it so far in the race. We're pretty early on, but now would be a good time to try and look and see if there was any shifting troubles, as down in turns 3 and 4, the optimal way to run that corner is you get down into the corner and try and downshift into third as fast as you can without being too early, as that allows you to brake a lot less and get a lot more acceleration off. And there is the possibility that Shane Neiswanger may have shifted down in a third too quickly, causing that truck to be very heavily unsettled.
Yeah, to the untrained eye, Alex, that almost looked exactly like what it was. We'll look at the onboard here. See if we can... Oh, yeah, it definitely sounded like he popped it into third early. And, I mean, it just spun that truck right around.
Yeah, that was a big trouble I personally had trying to run this vehicle around this racetrack, because it's very hard to determine when exactly you should drop it down in a third gear, because it's so close to being like you should keep it in fourth gear around that corner. But you're just slow enough that if your competitors do a better job at shifting down and really driving it off in third gear, you're going to be left in the dust. And as we saw right there, these competitors are taking every single last inch they can to try and maximize their speed around this racetrack. Well, luckily you can determine that there was no incident between any drivers in that caution right there, so there shouldn't be any more trouble out there on the racetrack. We saw lots of controversy last week with a lot of drivers being angry with one another. Plenty of drivers in this field who have already created a couple somewhat rivalries between each other. But as of right now, no troubles out there on the racetrack, as we look back at Nathan Nicholson leading the field after a strong pass on Nathan Jump, who still retained the second position, with Zach Henry retaining his starting spot in third position with RJ Williams there in fourth. Looks to be that passing is not the hardest thing in the world, but the trouble for these drivers is trying to set up the passes. It seems to be that the pace is very, very close between each driver. It's very hard to generate a run with how large these corners are and how wide they are. So trying to find a way to get a big run down these straightaways is where these drivers find trouble making passes.
Yeah, something I noticed early on is Nathan Nicholson, our leader, probably the only driver I've seen so far make it look easy passing on the inside. Um, That'll be something to look for as the race progresses. Nathan Nicholson already searching for his third win in 5 races this season, so he's definitely going to be one to watch.
Yes, but in the process of that victory, he has angered a couple drivers in the process. But if he keeps this run going and can stay ahead of the field, his rivals may have a hard time even getting close enough to him to pay him back, because we saw him have big troubles between him and Ashton Lawson at Long Beach. Then he didn't end up attending the race at Bristol last week. And so this would be the first time that these two drivers are on the racetrack with each other once again. But as of the positions right now, you have Ashton Lawson sitting, I believe that is in the 7th position. So with Nathan Nicholson having 6 trucks in between him and the driver he made very, very angry at Long Beach, might be trouble seeing any payback happening this week.
Yeah, definitely some bad blood between some of these drivers on the racetrack. Um, as we talk about it, something I've noticed, and I mentioned this earlier, is Nathan Nicholson has essentially become Great Lakes' version of Ross Chastain. He's not at all bashful about how he drives his truck, and that's something that I think we could appreciate.
And it looks like these drivers are lining up to get the green flag as we're going to be coming off of turn 4. That pace car is going to take the hard left-hand turn on the pit road. Nathan Nicholson is going to lead the field to green. Is he going to get a really good jump? Looks like he is going to be able to, as it looks like the inside lane has had their best start so far in this race, as Zachary Henry is going to get big help from Heller to push him alongside Nathan Jump and almost blow by him down in a turn 1 and 2, but not without a fight just yet. Jump is holding on to that outside quarter panel to try and get a run down the straightaway, as I'm seeing drivers get a little bit loose towards the back. These two are going to be fighting side by side as they head down into turns 3 and 4. That inside lane should prevail down here in 3 and 4. That's a big corner for them. Zachary Henry looked to get a little rough down into third gear, but Nathan Jump is still to the outside. He's doing a good job hanging on for the moment, but how much longer can he do this with drivers behind lining up ready to get past him as well?
Yeah, Nathan Jump holding strong on the outside. It'll be interesting to see where he slots in as the field kind of single files out very quickly in the top 10. Nathan Jump, the only one still trying to make it work on the high side, and it looks like he might do it. Heller's going to dive down to the bottom. How about his teammate and Zachary Henry get into 3? But like we talked about, Alex, I think the bottom line is the preferred line. But right now, Nathan Jump trying his best to keep that high side working.
Oh, he went a little deep down into 3. That's going to hurt his corner exit speed. He almost had Zachary Henry clear down the back straightaway. That's going to continue this battle for another lap or two as the leader in Nathan Nicholson is absolutely pulling away from this battle behind. But with that little mistake out of Nathan Jump, it looks to be the advantage goes to Zachary Henry. Is he going to slide up? No, he will not. Very, very close between these two drivers, but down into turn 3 should be where Zachary Henry gets the spot. That's going to allow Christopher Heller to get into this fight as Heller gets a little bit loose, jumping it down into third gear. Now the battle is for the third position between Heller and Jump. Can Jump slot his way into the third spot and not lose too many spots from that restart? He's clear going down into 1, but he's going to hold it to the outside. Big dive into turn 1. He's going to retain his third position.
Yeah, early in the race, I think that's a move Heller probably just let him make. No sense in trying to battle this hard, this early in the race. Something to note maybe for later in the race is while we were battling for second there with Zach Henry and Nathan Jump, Nathan Nicholson pulled out to almost a 1 second lead. We're sitting at about 9/10 of a second right now. So that is going to be interesting to see how something like that might play into a late race restart.
Looks like the first battle we have going on the racetracks between Elliot Henderson and Brandon Barkowski for the 8th position. Barkowski on the inside, but Elliot Henderson has been getting some fantastic runs coming off the corner, and he's been able to pull out down the straightaway. Looks to struggle a little bit that time by, but he still is going to manage to get a good run. I think what's helping him out here is everybody else in front of him is single file, so by the time they get to the straightaway, I say that, and Elliot Henderson really struggles getting down into turn 3, but I was going to say that he's getting a lot of draft heading down the straightaways. We're going to see it here against Josh Cottle, is that he was side by side in the center of the corner, but wasn't able to carry that through as Elliot was able to prevail. Oh, we might get contact almost between Elliot Henderson and Brandon Barkowski. Tight racing here at Twin Ring Motegi.
Yeah, Elliot Henderson sending it off into the corner. I'm not sure if something happened that we didn't see and he was sending a message to Barkowski, or he just wanted to get in front of Josh Cottle. But kind of a phenomenal move by Elliot Henderson early on, as we see Josh Cottle now trying to stick his nose in there and start battling.
Gotta watch out for drivers really getting tight off these corners. I've seen quite a few guys either get a little bit loose because they lose the rear end or almost drive it up towards the outside wall. We may see a couple guys here push a little bit hard and make some contact with that outside wall, especially out of turn 4. Looks to be the real problem corner tonight is 3 and 4, while 1 and 2 is more of just to try and manage your race car to set up for turn 3. Ooh, is Hunter Brittle going to try and take it to the outside? It looked like that was his plan there as the field's kind of stacked up behind Brandon Barkowski. wasn't able to get it done as that bottom lane again just looks dominant. But Christopher Heller, sorry, for the third position on Nathan Jump. This battle has come back to start once again. Nathan jumped to the outside as Heller dove it in low, and the outside does not look as powerful as it did on that initial restart as Heller was able to get a big run through. He's still going to be slightly ahead heading down into 3. I don't think this is going to be a very strong challenge here for Nathan Jump as Heller looks to be strong on the bottom, and that's going to lead the battle down to RJ Williams now for the 4th position as he's going to take it to the inside with, again, another big run up the inside. That outside lane looks to be dying out here.
Yeah, that bottom line just getting stronger and stronger as this run goes on. Nathan Jump doing a good job. All these guys are making that high line work for them for the time being, but I think as the longer this run goes, we're going to see that bottom line just becomes the one and only preferred line.
Yeah, as we're seeing the free fall there for Nathan Jump, just stuck on that outside lane. Everybody on the inside, I was having really, really big runs. I mean, he has speed tonight. We know it. He grabbed pole position, but his long run pace may struggle a little bit at this facility. That controller may be biting him a little bit with how wide these corners are. It might require a little more precision than he's capable of at the moment, but he will retain that 6th position for the moment as he's got past season's champion just behind him and Jake Miller looking to try and gain some more positions and kind of get himself back into the title fight against Nicholson. Gaps look to be opening up between our drivers at the front of the field. Nathan Nicholson with a 9/10 of a second gap to Zachary Henry behind, and then Henry with an 8/10 of a second gap to Heller behind. So our top 2 drivers really pulling away from this field at the moment with some very, very strong pace as everybody is seeming to be about a 10th off of the 2 of them. The problem is for Zachary Henry is he's just not running at as fast or faster than Nicholson to catch him. He's mimicking his lap times. He's just not able to go fast enough to close in that gap.
Yeah, at this point in the run, it seems to become a battle of track position. We're to the point now where everybody should be on pretty equal footing as far as tires go. Nathan Nicholson pulled out to that 9/10 of a second lead early in this run and really hasn't given it back. Zach Henry's pulled away from 3rd place. Chris Heller pulled out his own about 8/10 of a second lead.
Watch out, back straightaway. Heller and Barkowski looked like Henderson, sorry, not Heller. Looked like Henderson was trying to take it to the inside, and Barkowski threw a very, very hefty block on him to try and retain that position. Caudle tried to capitalize, but got a little close to that quarter panel and almost made contact. He's going to be able to keep it going, but Heller might be a little bit upset with that big of a block this early on in the race.
Yeah, I don't know if my eyes are deceiving me, but we saw Elliot Henderson for about the 3rd lap in a row throw it in there and get right on Barkowski's bumper. Maybe not be too happy with the driver of that 25 truck.
Yeah, and as he said, we've seen issues with drivers going on already this year. So we've already had a bit of controversy. These drivers might be reaching their wits' end, pretty much deciding that the most aggressive drivers are pretty much the ones that are capitalizing the most in this series so far this year. And so they might as well start doing it because it seems to be working for the other guys. And I would not be surprised to be seeing some contact going on with drivers as this race continues on. Looks to be the closest battle is gonna be between Nathan Jump and Jake Miller as the gap in front of Jump seems to be increasing, but the gap behind seems to be closing as his long run pace does seem to be struggling. Jake Miller takes it to the inside down in turn 1 and 2. Can Jump put on any type of fight? Looks like no. He just wants to slot back in line and try and get his truck tires underneath him. But he's got to watch out as now Barkowski has started to jump after his battle with Henderson finished. And now he's looking to retain the 7th spot away from Nathan Jump, who is just really struggling on pace right now.
Yeah, might have burned up his tires early on in one of these first runs. We're seeing Nathan Jump still doing a good job of maintaining his truck, but yeah, we're seeing these drivers just kind of take advantage of him getting into the corner. Something I noticed the last couple laps through turns 1 and 2 is it even when there wasn't a truck to his inside, it looked like Nathan Jump might have been struggling to get to that bottom line, and I think that's where these drivers are getting the advantage on him right now.
Yeah, like I mentioned, it is really, really hard to get down into the corner at this racetrack. It seems to really, really be difficult. And the biggest place on this track I'm noticing drivers really have troubles right in the center of turns 3 and 4, right when these drivers downshift, as they're all negotiating lap traffic right now. That could be a problem here for Nathan Jump on the outside, as it is a very, very wide racetrack, but too wide. They might want to try and single file it out. And yes, he will, to get around this lap traffic, but when they go down to turns 3 and 4, like I was saying, they get down into third gear and they really get loose, and it's hard to get back to the gas, and they've got to be so careful. And so many guys tonight I'm seeing really get loose at that part of the racetrack. Looks like gaps are starting to even out here, as the closest battle looks to possibly be between Henderson and Josh Cottle, as we're seeing a lot of things going on over here with Hunter Madalinas and Lewis Woodall, with Steven Sims behind looking to capitalize. That was almost 3 wide down the front straightaway. That battle is for the 17th position between these drivers. This is the pretty much only battle we have going on the racetrack right now. Woodall, surprisingly, is going to be able to hold it round the outside on Madalinas, who's probably not having as good of a day as he would like to be having today. Same thing with Steven Sims, who have shown some strong pace at the early portion of this season.
Ooh, Madalinas. A little bit of a, I don't know if that was a slide or a bump coming off of 4, as Steven Sims is going to look to make a move on him now.
Steven Sims up the inside. Last week, I thought he probably had the pace to be the winner of the race after the first few wrecks that we had that took out a lot of his closest competitors, but problems with a penalty out of nowhere relegated him to a 10th place finish after his recovery. But kind of a missed weekend last week. Was looking to kind of bounce back here at Twin Ring Motegi, but currently in the 19th position, or sorry, 18th position. It doesn't look like that's working out for him so far.
Yeah, Bristol last week took no prisoners, kind of chewed you up and spit you out, and Nathan Jump came out on top. Drivers in a little bit more control of their own destinies this week. A lot more room to spread out if there's an incident. A lot more room to run from the guy who may or may not be mad at you. So it's interesting to see drivers like Steven Sims and Hunter Madalinas.
Yeah, I mean, it's throwing everybody for a loop, and while I was mentioning a lot of good drivers are towards the front of the field, the guys we see on average running at the front of these packs, there's a couple stragglers. There's a couple, unique guys that we don't typically see at the front of the field. And, we're talking about Nathan Jump winning last week's race. Had it not been for all the wrecks, he himself probably said that he didn't have the greatest pace at Bristol Motor Speedway and might not have performed as well, but he's on average not really a driver that does run as well. But here tonight, he has a very decent truck underneath him. He is running decently well in the 10th position, maybe not where he wanted to be after qualifying on pole, but still better than guys who have won races in the past at this series, who have been contenders for the championship. So, but then you have on the other side of the coin, guys like Hunter Madalinas, who were championship contenders in years past, but this weekend are just not running that well.
See him get up the racetrack and, almost clocks the wall, has to get on the brakes. And you're going to see here 1 trucks, 2 trucks, 3 trucks pass him, or get past him heading into turn number 3.
Yeah, that's a rough move right there, but it looks like he's going to kind of recover from it, as he's currently on the pit lane. This seems to be the end of the pit cycle for these drivers, as I'm hearing a lot of chatter on the radio that drivers are coming down pit road now. There's already a good chunk of drivers already on pit road. that second position, Zachary Henry, actually looks like our leader, Nicholson, had already pit. He's just coming out of the pit lane now. So while we were talking about that with Ashton Lawson, pit cycles have begun for these drivers, and the field order is mixed up. Gotta be watching out for a caution, because that could trap some drivers a lap down.
Yeah, this is always the most tedious part of the runs here in the Great Lakes Truck Series. We'll see a lot of guys coming on pit road, a lot of guys coming off pit road, and we always, it never fails, we'll always see the split strategy where we'll see some drivers pit as early as they can, and we'll see some drivers essentially run themselves out of gas. So you always have to be careful over here of these next 5 or 10 laps as drivers on new tires try to manage drivers that are on old tires.
Yeah, and the one thing I was interested to see with Nathan Nicholson coming out of the pit lane and Christopher Heller staying out on the racetrack was whether or not he would get trapped a lap down as the leader with how big of a gap he did. And at the time of Nicholson exiting the pit lane, Heller had just barely gotten past him. So it looks like during green flag conditions, if you were to pit early and a caution would come out, there is a very good chance that you could get trapped a lap down by the leaders.
Yeah, you kind of run that ragged edge here.
All right, what I was watching was with Nicholson coming out when he did and with Henry coming out when he did, what the gap was going to be between those two. Good battle out of the pit lane between Barkowski and Fitzgerald right there. Looked to be very, very tight for Barkowski. Almost got into that driver as Fitzgerald does a lot of front end damage right
We're seeing
there.
a lot of damage on the front of the 14 of Gavin Fitzgerald. I heard some tires screeching coming off pit lane. I'm thinking that 14 truck might have spun out on the access road after his pit stop. We'll grab a replay here in a second and see if we can see what happened. But a lot of damage to the front of the 14 truck.
Yeah, and there was some pretty big chatter on the radio between Barkowski and Fitzgerald, who we saw side by side exiting the pit lane, with Barkowski saying that he actually cost him 5 spots. So that could have been some trouble there. But I'm just not sure, because it's very weird to just, be in that kind of position anyway and show up with that much front end damage and not have a caution come out. Well, while we pretty much look around trying to find out what had happened to Gavin Fitzgerald, this is them exiting the pit lane right here. Fitzgerald ahead of Barkowski. He already has that front end damage, so there must have been an incident long before the pit cycle that caused Fitzgerald to have that front end damage. But as we saw there, Barkowski did lose some positions exiting the pit lane, as that damage on Fitzgerald really slowed down both of them on the pit exit, and he's gonna lose a few spots in that process. What I'm gonna be looking at is all these drivers who are still out on the racetrack. It doesn't look to be that the fuel window is where everybody pit at. Looks to be much, much longer for some of these guys. Or actually, in fact, I believe a lot of these guys that have stayed out actually had pit under our early cautions to take fuel and purposefully run longer, as if a caution were to come out right now with how many laps are on the tires, they would have a pretty strong advantage over their competitors if they were to not come down the pit lane with them. So this is a really good call for these guys who are at the back of the field, probably not running as well, and just really needing to get off strategy to try and find some track position. So good call from Lewis Woodall here, our current leader, Anderson Bowen, Rod Fasnaugh, and Tyler McClellan, the only drivers yet to pit so far in this run.
Yeah, what we're seeing looking at timing and scoring is our top 3 right now. Lewis Woodall, Anderson Bowen, and Rod Fasnaugh. They all 3 pit under... Oh, and we have the yellow flag.
The caution's out! Exactly what we were talking about for these drivers. Looks like Hunter Brittle parked down the back straightaway. Trouble for that driver. What possibly could have happened to him there to be stopped in that kind of position? We're gonna have to be looking for a replay, as that is not a spot you stop here at this racetrack. Well, currently he's scored as being a lap down, as he is still sitting on the pit lane well after this caution began. So problems for that driver as well, who was on a strong strategy. But we're going to be looking here at the replay of Hunter Brittle and the driver he may have been battling with prior to the incident that caused his stoppage down the back straightaway. We're going to be seeing him down here in turns 1 and 2 behind the 98 truck. That's Nathan Nixon as they come out of turn 2.
This starts about a lap and a half before the incident itself. We're going to see the 99 and the 10.
The 98.
98, I'm sorry. We're going to see them essentially.
Nathan Nixon.
We're going to see them go at it here for about a lap. So just take a look and see for yourself what happens here.
So it looks to be a fantastic move there from Hunter Brittle to try and find his way around the outside of Nathan Nixon. Going to take a very wide arc in, but that's going to allow him to get a big run off. Ooh, he comes down a little bit and they make contact, but they saved it there. So no problems here. The problem is going to be right here down the back straightaway. Uh-oh, problems. And oh no, that is a phenomenally massive hit there for Hunter Brittle. Up, around, flying into space was that 10 truck, parked up against the outside wall after all was said and done. And very close here for Eric Kepf, who saw this happen right in front of his own eyes. Look at this. Oh no, not what you want to be seeing going down the back straightaway here at Twin Ring Motegi. Well, I guess we could call trouble. As we see right there, he kind of tags Brittle in the back end, turns him into the outside wall, and when he came back to the left, just never seemed to be able to save it. The truck got lost from underneath him, and at a high rate of speed, he flew to that inside wall. And well, when the immovable object gets hit, the immovable object is not moving, and Hunter Brittle's truck went flying in the other direction.
Yeah, Hunter Brittle's day obviously done. I'd be interested to see. We might not know anymore until post-race, but it seemed like those drivers were having a bit of a, let's call it a conversation on the racetrack, and obviously Hunter Brittle might have lost that one.
Yeah, a bit of controversy there, as we saw. I mean, it looked like Brittle, in the initial battle prior to that happening, when they made contact in turns 1 and 2, it looked like Brittle had just come down a little bit much, kind of overestimated how much space he had to the 98, and they made contact there. But the back straightaway, that's an unusual spot for that to happen, because they were already going essentially in a straight line. It was just the awkward place that Nixon had tagged the 10 truck that ended up sending him around. And I mean, that's going to throw the strategy all over the place for these drivers, as I'm pretty sure Lewis Woodall trapped a good number of our front runners a lap down, forcing them to take a wave around. He's going to line up in the 11th position. So fantastic strategy call for that 13 truck, as all the other leaders look to have stayed out and get their track position. So he's going to be able to pull this once again if we go green flag, and could find himself with even more track position by the end of this run. While we wait for our little co-host here to come back around, we're looking right here at our leader, Nathan Nicholson. Strongest car of the night, but it looked like on the last run that Zachary Henry had got the tires underneath him, now with the renewed track position after finally getting around the drivers he'd been battling for the second spot. He was doing a fantastic job of trying to run down Nathan Nicholson. He closed the gap a lot through the pit cycle, and he was able to gain a massive, massive gap over our leader. The problem was he still was not close enough to really make a maneuver, but now with this restart, him lining up in the second position, he's at a higher likelihood of slotting into the second spot and being much closer to our leader, rather than being stuck in a battle like he was on the previous run. So this is going to be a lot tougher here for Nathan Nicholson, as Zachary Henry is on a trip to try and get himself a victory here in the Great Lakes Truck Series. Nicholson's been on a roll so far this season. Every race he's participated in so far, he's gotten the victory, and he's gonna be looking to keep that streak going. But Zachary Henry's definitely gonna want to stop him here, as we're gonna be taking the green flag as a pace car takes the hard left-hand turn. Nathan Nicholson has a bit of a gap, and he's gonna jump it early, and he's gonna get a big run. That's gonna allow Zachary Henry to be forced into a battle here with Christopher Heller, but he might be able to clear him down into one. Yes, he will. So Nicholson is not going to get as big of an advantage he had the last time by. Zachary Henry's got to make sure he doesn't get himself involved in a battle, as that could spell trouble for his chances at the victory here. But it looks to be Elliot Henderson looking to try and get a run here. Heller's going to actually just push his teammate down the back straightaway, but that's going to allow Henderson to get a big run down into 3 and 4. Not going to be able to take it, as on the outside lane, Nathan Jump, who was getting trapped out there previously, is using it to make some passes out there. So he's back in the fight now on some brand new tires on this restart. He's to the outside of Elliot Henderson for the 4th position. Is he going to be able to hold it, as the top 3 are single filed out? But Nathan Jump making some big moves around that outside.
Kind of a chaotic restart all the way around, Alex. Probably the most chaotic we've seen yet tonight. We saw one truck get loose on that restart and just go for a topsy-turvy trip down the infield on the back straightaway on that restart. Everybody's starting to sort out now as we're seeing Nathan Jump battle with Elliot Henderson. Elliot looking to make that high side work here early in the run.
Yeah, Nathan Jump had taken it from the high side of turn 1 to the bottom side of turn 2 and crossed over Elliot Henderson. Made a good move to get to the inside, but it's actually going to cost him a position here, as it looks to be RJ Williams is making some strong progress on the outside, as Nathan Jump just looks to be loose in that truck. He's not able to get the power down through the corners, and he's really driving that thing on the ragged edge. That's going to really hurt his pace over the long run. Could have been the problems that we saw last time by. And look who's kind of entered the fight back here just behind Nathan Jump. William Barbagelata didn't start off with the greatest qualifying effort in the 12th position, and didn't really seem to make up as much progress as Elliot Henderson did early on. But here he is inside the battle with the top 7, who have broken away from the rest of the field, over a half second behind him. This is where the battle's going to be, from the 7th position up to the 1st spot, as all these guys are within a couple tenths of each other. Looks to be that the very front of the field is starting to open up a bit of a gap, and right towards the back of this top 7 is where the battle's going to be. Barbagelata kind of hounding a little bit on the back bumper, and Nathan Jump whenever he could get the chance. But we saw Jump have a fantastic restart. That could be key later on in the race if he finds himself with some good track position. He seems to be very strong in these restarts in the first few laps. That could be something to watch out for, as we've just panned over to the damaged car of Shane Neiswanger, one of our early front runners who got involved in some problems down in turns 3 and 4 with some shifting, and one of the first and likely not last drivers to suffer from that same issue. And here we have a couple drivers that had to take the wave around to get themselves back on the lead lap. Ashton Lawson and Brandon Barkuski stuck behind the 6 car of Steven Sims, probably out of position from where they wish they were, but this is still in the back half of the top 10. The problem is the top 7 guys are over a second away from all of them, so they've really fallen off in these last few laps. But, you know, driver we were talking about kind of ailing towards the back of the field, back half the field, was Steven Sims, currently sitting in the 8th position. He started in 30th for this race, so pretty much a terrible qualifying position for him, as we see him slight connection issues on that end. But he was running in the 17th position just about 15 laps ago when we last talked about him. But here he is in the 8th position, kind of battling right now with Ashton Lawson, as we're also looking at this battle here with William Barbagelata. But, ooh, Lawson, tight battle. Here he's going to actually get it to the inside with a fantastic drive off of turn 4. In theory, Sims should have the run around the outside, but Ashton Lawson is still looking low. He's going to dive in a 1. Got to be careful here, boys. Don't run too close together. Don't want to get tagged on the left rear quarter. Ashton Lawson has got that truck planted on that white line. He's going to have a fantastic run coming out of turn 2. I think this position's had by Ashton Lawson heading down to turns 3 and 4, unless Steven Sims can find something magical on that high side. But here he goes, Ashton Lawson up the inside, clears him. Can Steven Sims get down? Yes, he will, just barely over the front nose of Brandon Barkuski.
Ashton Lawson made it look easy right there. I mean, he had that truck planted on the white line. He wasn't half a lane on it, above it. He was on it, as we're seeing Brandon Barkuski trying to do the same thing with the 6 of Steven Sims.
That could be the key for making passes around here, as we do know various other tracks here on iRacing, that painted line really gives you a lot of extra grip in those left side tires and really allows you to get some good drive through the center and off the corner in these vehicles. Could be a similar thing we have here at Twin Ring Motegi. The problem is that painted line is so thin, it's just kind of beneficial and a lot easier for some of these guys to not run right on top of it. As we see, looks like the 98 here, Nixon involved in the last previous incident, just getting passed here by Jake Miller. This is down, I believe, for the 14th position. So Jake Miller way out of line. As there's a truck who took a very unorthodox line down the back straightaway. Unsure who that was. I believe that may have been Kyle Hall in the 87. But you know, we're seeing a bunch of guys with some problems, as we see the 57 as well with some damage on the right side of his vehicle. Could have made some contact to that outside wall. We've seen that happen before. I'm seeing a bit of a battle going on for what looks to be the 16th position between Hunter Madalinas and Brett Kingcott. They're side by side heading out of turn 2. Looks like Madalinas, again, kind of struggling for a bit of pace here tonight, with Josh Cottle, who was up towards the front early on, also losing out on some track position as they're gonna stack up behind the 98 there. Madalinas gets onto the apron slightly. He's still gonna get the driver off. He's gonna clear Kingcott. Is he gonna look to the inside of Nixon? Not yet so far. That's gonna allow Josh Cottle to get to the inside here. He's on a recovery, tripped it back to the front of the field.